right. It is December 31st, 2019. So at this point, we're going to be talking to you from the future. I'm talking to three great gentlemen who are doing something very, very unique and very interesting here in the Metro Atlanta area. I actually met one of the organizers. I'm not even going to say just it's one individual person, but it's a collective from what I found out about three young black people who really, and actually more than that, and they're going to explain to me in a second who is actually involved. But I have three people here today. They're going to talk to me about a wonderful initiative. It's called Portrait Coffee. Portrait Coffee is currently right now going on a Kickstarter fundraising campaign. They've raised over $20,000 and they need your help. The fundraising campaign will close on January 12th of this year. And as it closes, they're going to get really close and they need every bit of dollars to get it off the ground. What they're doing is something that's very unique in the sense that we've heard of the third wave of coffee. Starbucks, lattes, mass market consumption of coffee that was just outside of your Folgers can. Now we're essentially entering the fourth wave of coffee, which is very much the craft coffee movement. This is an interesting movement because Atlanta as a whole is moving and is one of the national leaders on this fourth wave of coffee. And now we also have a part of the fourth wave is not just craft, but also people of color who are also entering that space. I'm talking to three wonderful black gentlemen who are going to explain to me why they got into it and what coffee means for them. And so I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves first. And this is Portrait Coffee, and we'll start with you.
All right. I'm John Onwuchekwa, one of the founders of Portrait. Got a wife, daughter, pastor in the West End.
And my name's Aaron Fender. And I love building community, and I love coffee, and I love supporting people of color, and that is why we started Portrait Coffee. And I also have a lovely wife and a dog named Creflo.
All right, you got to come back and explain why we Creflo.
We got to touch back on that. And my name is Marcus Hollinger. I'm an Atlanta resident. I am professionally in music, so I work in music marketing at a label based here in Atlanta. I'm a family man. Actually, tomorrow is my 1-year anniversary. Right. And actually, my wife and I are expecting our first child. So I am probably the least educated in coffee, but just like my partners here, I love community. I love black people, and I am very excited to be a part of this. So
okay. And I actually met Marcus first. And so it was at a Trapital brunch during A3C's conference back in October. And he was mentioning that he was getting into the coffee thing. And then it was the way you explained it, because a lot of people will just talk about, I'm getting into coffee. It's like, oh, okay. Right. But you had so much conviction about this. I was like, okay, whatever it is, I'm going to give him $20 now, because there was so much conviction in what you were saying about coffee and the need to have black people in coffee and why coffee is important. This is a brunch for like a hip hop festival, right? This is like the least coffee place that you could be at. And Marcus' level of conviction was like, all right, let me go talk to him about that. And so that's why we're sitting here today, is because I haven't seen anybody that passionate in a long time about coffee, and particularly connecting black people back to coffee. And so let's start from there first.
Yeah.
Why did you in particular want to get involved?
So, I wanted to get involved primarily because, and I think you'll find this in different shades just throughout the room. Like, 2016 was probably 2016, 2017, 2018. Those years changed my life. I experienced depression for the first time, and I am generally a person who's full of passion, full of conviction. But for the first time, I found myself depressed in those years, and it had everything to do with this awakening about what was going on in the country. And so, in getting past that and growing in my consciousness of what it means to be a black man in America at these times, I wanted to be a part of bringing solutions. And meeting my friends or having these different conversations with my friends, it was like, yo, this is something very specific that we can do to bring about that change. And I think it just works. So it's part mission, it's part coffee and it being something that's really good, but it also, it really is also these guys right here. These are some of my best friends. I love them, and they love coffee and know a whole lot about it. So I was like, check. I'm in. Any way I could support this thing, I want to. So.
Right. And for you, how did you guys get involved?
So I was traveling back in 2017. I had the opportunity to go to Africa a couple times, and I was able to actually go to coffee farms and engage communities of farmers and really understand how important coffee is to these villages and to these people. And another thing I realized was there's a lot of mismanaged marketing behind the stories of these farmers and how fairly or unfairly they're being compensated. And then I came home back to our community, and we're all residents of Southwest Atlanta. And I actually had the honor of marrying into a family that has like over 80 years of history in the community. And a lot of that generational issues that I saw in Africa when it comes to socioeconomics and poverty exist in the West End just like they do in Kigali, Rwanda, or parts of Uganda, or parts of Tanzania. And so that just started a lot of conversations between John and I, and talking about some of the parallels we'll see. And John has some really great analogies and ways of considering these things, and we just started to talk about like what would it look like for us to have a tangible impact in our community and hopefully soon communities abroad. So yeah.
All right.
I started to drink it out of necessity. So, I'm 35 years old. I've been pastoring for over a decade now. And probably 8 or 9 years ago, I got to a place where I was, my days were just really, really long. And I'm like, sweetheart, I need something to keep me up. And so I had it, and my first thought was, it's not as bad as I remember it. But then, like anything that I do, I just started to like nerd out and try to get into this world. And the deeper and deeper that I got into the world, what I found was that I'd constantly be the only person that like looked like me in these rooms. But then I started to nerd out more and more and more and go back. And then I found out, coffee only grows on soil where black and brown folks live. So it does not grow on European soil. So it's like, it's like you dive into one part of the pool and you're like, this is like, I feel like I'm not at home. But then you keep on going further down and you look and say, what? It's nothing but folks like me that are down here. And so the more and more that I just kind of looked back and saw the history behind it, I felt like I came to the surface, and I'm like, yo, there's a different story that has to be told. Like, this is, it felt like, and I don't use this word lightly, it felt wrong. It felt like there was an injustice that had been done. And being here in Atlanta for 10 years, I mean, that same injustice in coffee is seen all throughout this city, right? So,
okay, and that brings me to something else. I remember Marcus showed me right before the Kickstarter launch, and I was like, I need to change some words about this, because as a journalist, it was driving me up the wall, right? But like the one thing he kept harping on it, so you mentioned I think like 8 or 9 times in it, which was this idea of black coffee and reconnecting black people to. So now I want to talk to you guys about this issue of bringing black coffee back. And I remember Marcus wrote it about 8 or 9 times, and I was like, why does he keep saying black coffee? Why does he keep saying black coffee? But it wasn't until I went through all of your materials and I was like, okay, now I see where they're trying to go with this one. So can you explain to the people at home what does black coffee mean and why you're trying to reconnect people to that?
Yeah, so when coffee comes out and you start to talk through that and people hear craft coffee, lattes and all that stuff, the picture that gets in their mind is like golf, right? Yeah, it just seems like it's a white man's game. And what we're saying is like, no. There's a history behind it that we really want to help folks see. Like, no, like this is something that we were a part of. Our ancestors discovered it. So it's like, it feels part of like trying to awaken people to an inheritance that they have. Like, this is a big deal. And so that's why we named it Portrait, because we feel like, man, what really changes people is if you can change the picture that comes to their mind when they think about history, it'll change the way they interact with the future. And so our thing is we're just trying to slowly just kind of have that drip go down and just slowly change the picture that they think of when they think of coffee.
Okay. And one of the other things I noticed in your promotional material was that this idea of inequality, in particular, like you guys are still trying to be in a we're not going to say it yet because you don't have the letter of intent signed, but a community in Atlanta in particular that is both gentrifying, but that's still very hard hit. Yeah. And that's essentially a community that's also never recovered from the recession. And so it seems as if you guys have had this need to want to address inequality through coffee and through entrepreneurship. And so any one of you guys can answer this one. Where do you guys believe that this could go in regards to that?
Yeah, I'll start off and then we can go through. So I think there's so many people that talk about affordable housing, right? But when you talk about gentrification, I think that it's a tidal wave that comes across and it hits communities of people who historically have not been great swimmers. And so there's all this work on trying to get people to build up walls. And what we're saying is we want to try to tackle it by teaching those folks how to swim. So in a changing economy, what we say is, no, all right, coffee is a commodity. It's been traded. And for 1,200 years, it's been around. And everybody that gets their hands on it can't get enough of it. It's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And what we're saying is, man, the barrier to entry is low. We can bring people from the community into what we're trying to do, give them equity, help them learn and grow. So now when prices get unaffordable, you've got a group of folks who may not get into the best schools or do these things there, but there's an avenue and a pathway for them to be able to generate wealth in a very normal way.
I think you said it all. The only thing I'll add on to that is I think something that really drives me is I think Portrait has the opportunity to be a hospitality company. And when I say that, we have the opportunity to genuinely care and love every person that walks in the door. That's something that drives and excites me. But even more importantly, we have the opportunity to empower people in our community to learn those very same skills and trades and actually give them something that they can take with them or they can reinvest back into the business and build a career out of it. So,
yeah, I mean, again, I could only build on or echo what they said, but I think when you think of being able to walk into a local coffee shop and the people that you see there look like you, they're treating you nicely, and you get exposed to different types of conversations, ways of life that are from people who look like you, the possibilities are endless. I mean, it feels very personal to me because I'm not from Atlanta, but I am from the inner city. The neighborhood that I grew up in looks like the one that we live in and where we would like to put this coffee shop. And when I was a young man, I got caught up in a lot of things that come along with street life, gangs, selling drugs, things like that. And it had everything to do with the people that were around me that I looked up to. So the impact that we're talking about here is being able to have people from the neighborhood be able to get exposed to something different and say, I never would have thought about that, but this is cool, this is comfortable, and I can make me some money, you know.
Okay, and so in regards to what you guys are trying to accomplish, you seem like you're getting really close. And by the time this airs, you guys will probably be much closer, if not have reached your goal. What's been the biggest challenge besides raising money with getting this off the ground?
I think honestly, it would probably be a little disingenuous to say that we haven't been like blown away by the support. I mean, like doors are flying open for this cause. So, but I think one bit of friction that kind of comes through is sometimes within our own communities, there's this notion that these types of things won't work. So I think there is this energy that, Black people don't drink coffee, so it's not gonna work. Or this notion that because we all live in the neighborhood. I mean, if we're able to accomplish our goal, the shop would be in walking distance to all of our homes. And I think there's this perception that you can't make a difference in these neighborhoods. And so that's that way, yeah. So that I think that just kind of, if anything, that's sort of some of the energy that we get, and it comes from people who could be there and who could be on the ground in the same way. But yeah, I think that's maybe some of the friction. What it looks like.
Yeah. So I mean, the support has been great, and surprisingly, like, fundraising hasn't been the hard part. Like, people have been willing and just, we've been blown away by the support. So, there's the team of the three of us here and our wives and a young dude in the back, but then there's so many other folks that are outside of this room that have come alongside to help in so many other ways. So, yeah.
I think one thing that's particularly interesting and a little tricky is we have an incredible individual representing us with real estate, but I do think there is a fair level of friction or skepticism when we are speaking with developers, and we are presenting a thorough, studied business plan, and we're saying like, hey, we have investors backing us in the very same way that a lot of coffee companies do in Atlanta. And I do feel like there has been a fair bit of skepticism in engaging with these developers. So that's definitely been a bit of an uphill battle for us. And
in terms of development, I want to be clear. Do you guys mean developments like large scale developments, or they're just like a developer or somebody who owns like a one-off building? So I just want to be clear who you're talking about. Yeah. So we've engaged both. And I would say the answer is yes to both. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. No, that's legit. Yeah. I would say it's yes to both. Okay. All right. So you guys are going to be opening up a coffee shop, presumably on the west side. You guys have raised the funds, and by the time this airs, we're going to claim this now. You're going to have a lot more funds in the bank to do it with. But that area is gentrifying. There's a lot of big scale development moving. There's a lot of home flipping moving. There's a lot of people who don't really care about a community space, and especially a community space owned by 3 Black guys. So what has that experience been like for you guys right now? Yeah, it's been challenging, and it's been a learning process because, like you said, there is a lot of large scale development happening in our community. And typically what happens in these processes is there aren't people who look like us that have a plan like we do, who are saying, like, knocking on the door and saying, hey, we know what you're doing, we want to be involved. What they're most likely to do, and typically what happens is they bring in their friends and neighbors from other communities to move into these new developments. And so that's already been an uphill battle, and kind of really self-advocating and saying, like, no, please, like, look at our plan, look at our story, look at our financial model, like, we're for real, Okay. And the other thing is, I just want to be honest with you guys. I'm rooting for you guys because outside of what Daniel Brown's doing out in Stone Mountain with Gilly Brew Bar, you might be one of 2 or 3 Black-owned coffee shops, period, in like the entire metro area. And we think about a metro area of 6 million people with maybe 4 coffee shops. That's not helping anything out, like in terms of like growing equity, unless we have somebody really investing in you guys. So has it been a little bit frustrating to know that A, you've got an audience, B, you've got cash coming in, but C, the most important thing is just having a space isn't quite clicking like that?
Yeah. So that's been it just kind of feels like, all right, we got money in the bank, you got your driver's license, you know what I'm saying? You got you got the keys to the car, and you like walk outside and it's like, where's the car? Like, where's the car? And it's like, you go around, it's like, yo, I can't get in anybody's car. I promise I'll take care of it. I'll bring it back. So it just feels, it just feels like yeah, it just feels, there's part of it where you feel like just kind of hamstrung, or it's like you're doing all of the right things and you're just waiting on the opportunity that often comes to people that don't do all the right things, but they've got plenty of it. And so our big thing right now is we're just trying to keep pushing forward, because at the end of the day, man, we want to grow and build this thing, but that's not the main thing for us. I mean, we want to inspire other folks to do the same thing. And so to build a community of folks that are like us is a thing that we want to do. Like, we don't want this to feel like we're competing. Like, Daniel Brown has been huge for us, a great friend. And so our hope is, man, we just want to plant this first one, let that acorn grow into an oak tree, let that oak tree drop down some more acorns, and if we can just be that first seed to come in here and to start things off, then
right. And do you think I'm glad you said that, because it seems as if you guys open a coffee shop in Atlanta, and still, as of 2020, Atlanta is still the land of milk and honey for Black people. Do you, and I want to be clear, like, do you think this idea could work if this was any other place but Atlanta? Everything the same exact scenario. 3 Black guys, got a small audience that's growing into a fast, large audience, getting money while you're doing it. Do you think that could work? Let's say if we were in Cleveland, or if we were in Milwaukee, or if we were in San Antonio, Texas, could that work?
So I think that it could work, but I think that it would kind of feel like you're lighting hot coals, right? It's not going to be a big flame, and it's just going to take a long time to get nice and hot. Here kind of feels like those same coals, but Atlanta is lighter fluid that's just kind of dumped on it. And so it really does feel like this could be the unique thing about here is that Atlanta is a city of influence. So it's like, man, if it can start here and it can work here, I think it can reverberate through the Charlottes, the Houstons, the Austins, Dallas, LA's, Philly, right? So that's our goal.
And so also, we're going to stay on that for a minute for Atlanta. You guys are 3 Black men married in Atlanta doing business. How does that affect you guys? Because you're about to get into a whole new realm for 3 people who already have jobs. So how is that going to be, and a wife? So how is that going to be like looking for, and how has that been so far?
If you go and check out our socials, you'll see, I think the answer to that question, it's been family that's been supporting this. I mean, we had our first pop-up event on Saturday, and it was us, our wives, all of our best friends there doing this thing, and I think that that's what makes it special. The effect is making us closer. So we have a group text that includes our wives, and they help make decisions. They're helping speaking into things, and I think there's just this collective like I got you type of mentality that it's really felt like, man, like it's been great. It hasn't felt extra. It's felt energizing.
Really quick on top of that too, it's like, I mean, unfortunately today it's just the 3 of us speaking, representing Portrait, but our wives are team members, and they're more than just our wives in Portrait Coffee too. So my wife Aaron is the visual storyteller for Portrait, so a lot of the images you're seeing on social media she's capturing. John's wife, Chandra, is an incredible designer, and the cart that you can see from our first pop-up, she very detail orientated, just killed it on the design, and it looks special and beautiful. So I just want to make sure that we're advocating for the women, you know what I mean? They are so much more than our wives, and crucial part of the team. So
right. Yeah. And that also is like really good to know, because a lot of times people who are wanting to get into entrepreneurship, all you guys are pretty young, they feel as if I can't get into entrepreneurship because I have a wife now, or I have a kid. And it feels like for them, like mentally, I make a lot of people, they just feel like, okay, maybe that's a hindrance. What do you want to say to people like that who may have had a child, may have just gotten married, but they want to jump into where you guys are, but they are feeling a little afraid about doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll hear this even in the tech space or any other startup space, that you have to have a support network, people who are just there for you to, root you on, encourage you, because it can be really weird. But I think if your family can't be bought into the vision and somehow or brought in or be made a part of it, I think that's an early sign that maybe that might not be something that it shouldn't feel like your family is a hindrance. If it doesn't feel like it can energize and be a part of, instead it maybe feels like something that should be separate. I don't think that's a good early sign.
Yeah, and for us, in some way, shape, and form, it's our faith that drives us, and so I think, man, from that faith, it's not just a set of rules, right? Our faith starts, and the Bible or the book that we read from, we view it as this is a story about family, right? So from our standpoint, family doesn't stand in the way of anything that we try to do. Family gives shape to all of the things that we try to do. And so our wives have very much been, they've channeled and chiseled this rough idea into the pristine things that folks see. So my advice is, let the family shape what you do.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you guys the same. It is in your industry, there's one thing that you could change about the industry that you're in currently. In the case of you guys, it's going to be coffee. What would that change be? There's no limitations. It's just one thing you could change. And we're going to start with.
Yeah, I'll go first. For me, a huge goal is affordability. So especially coffee, the nature of it is a luxury good, and we just have to be honest about that, right? And when I say luxury, is the floor for a bag of coffee is $12, and the ceiling is my water bill. So it's crazy. But I think for a portrait, we really want to focus on affordable green coffee buying, which makes the coffee that we sell on our menu more affordable and accessible for our community and friends and family.
We talked about this some this morning. I feel like right now in coffee, coffee's been given a prominence that I think it deserves, but it's been put in the wrong place. So it's go to any coffee Instagram page, and what you'll get is a bunch of pictures of coffee grounds and the roaster that they have, and all that stuff is fine. Mm-hmm. But for people that like coffee, where we feel coffee's it's meant to be the life of the party, but from the background. It's a platform. So think about all the civil rights meetings that were fueled by coffee when folks had to stay up late. Think of all the artists, your favorite songs, movies, screenplays, books that were fueled by folks that had to work in the wee hours of the morning or late at night. Coffee is meant not to be in the forefront, but it's meant to be a platform for so much more. And so I think one of the things that we really hope to do is just kind of show in a broader way what coffee can be, and kind of use it as a tool to get people that may be confined to Southwest ATL and help them see, there's a whole world out there, and you can ride this train of this good and see all the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I think I would echo what John said, and the way I would communicate it is participation. So if coffee were music, right now coffee is thought about like rock. And whenever rock music comes up, a lot of black folks would think we don't have nothing to do with that. But then if you pull out some Chuck Berry, if you pull out, Jimi Hendrix, things like that, you say, no, we have a very rich history in this art form. And then if you put a guitar in the hands of a young black boy, amazing things would happen. And so I would like to see just that happen in the coffee industry, where more people who are currently fringe or not interested would see possibility and want to get in with it. And in particular, I think Portrait has the opportunity to sort of be the Motown of the coffee industry, where Motown made very black music. It was prominent. But what was special about Motown is they made black music for everybody. So I think we have the opportunity to do that.
I like that. And before we go, there's something I do want to ask you guys. Just because you harped on, we didn't really get into it, but I want to get into it now before we leave, which is reconnecting. Like, one of the key tenets, and you said, was reconnecting black people to coffee. If all the people who listen to this and all the people who see this now, what is the one thing you want them to know about black people and coffee and that reconnection? Yeah.
9th century Ethiopia. A goat herders saw their goats were lit when they ate these cherries. They discovered that if we take the beans out, roast it, grind it, bam, coffee. So it's like over 1,000 years ago, it was discovered by people that look like us. The beverage that is at the top of the food chain, the only drink that's consumed more than it today is water, right? Water, coffee, Coca-Cola. There's just a rich history, and that's what I just want. Yeah, I want there to be not a ethnocentrism, but a sense of pride and, like he said, opportunity. I want them to just know where it started, and I think if folks really grasp where it started, then they can really know the sky's the limit as to where it could go and where it could take them and us. So, yeah.
Okay. And so, wrapping up, I want you guys to give out your information on how people can donate to the campaign and where they can find you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on social media, on Instagram at Portrait Coffee ATL, and then you can find our Kickstarter campaign through that, or you could just go to kickstarter.com and search Portrait Coffee in the search bar. And we just really want to thank you for your time, and thank you to everyone who's listening to this and listening to our narrative. So
okay. And can you tell them where your next event is going to be at?
Yeah, so by the time this comes out, this will be pretty fair to say, but our next event, we're having a pop-up at the Be Social space in Atlanta. So it is next door to this, and partner with Ama Manier, which is sneaker boutique here in Atlanta. So we're very proud to be able to inhabit that space and talk about how coffee intersects with street culture and some of the advance the narrative through that platform. So February 1st, we'll be there.
Okay. And thank you guys once again for coming out. And I told you guys I'd give every one of my guests 2 questions. You guys got the first. The second one is for all of you guys, is what's making you happy?
Man, I think right now, what makes me happy is what this is doing for my friends. At our pop-up, we were just talking about it this morning. I saw John so happy and just existing in this joy of this dream of his, and that just really did a lot for me. At the same time, like Aaron, I'm so proud of this dude, man. I feel like I'm using my expertise and my talents in marketing to really push these guys along, and any benefit that comes to me just feels secondary. So I think really, man, seeing them benefit that's what's making me happy.
In a similar vein, I think, in just building the team and figuring out everyone's gifts and talents and seeing that fruit come out, and just seeing John's ability to communicate through Portrait, and seeing Marcus and the strategy that goes in it, seeing my wife capturing those two things through a visual lens, seeing another guy on our team, Khalid Smith, just do excellence in the operations of it, and then seeing Chandra design well the space for the event. Like, I think, you know, I made this joke on social media, but it's like, I feel like watching our team operate is like watching the 2013-14 San Antonio Spurs. There's just like a wicked chemistry. Yeah. No, I'm a purist, but it's like, man, it's so smooth, and it's really going so well. So I think for me, just to see like the purity of our team is really bringing me joy. So.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, yeah, we live by the phrase, you know, the team that you play with is more important than the field that you play on, that if you're with the right folks, it really doesn't matter where you go or what you do. And so every day that we get up and start to get to work in the group text, it doesn't feel like work. Like just seeing everybody shine, it's dope because it feels like, yeah, there's nobody vying for prominence or limelight. It's all like, hey, let's just put our heads down and grind and enjoy and see what happens. So, yeah, man.
All right, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys. And once again, thank you guys for listening. Depending on where you listen to this at, make sure you always subscribe. So iTunes, SoundCloud, even Spotify. So wherever you heard this podcast, this is the Neighborhood Watch podcast. And also make sure, please, support Portrait Coffee. By the time you're hearing this, they will still have a Kickstarter campaign going on. So you can search kickstarter.com/Portrait Coffee. So kickstarter.com/Portrait Coffee. Make sure you support them. You can find them on all social media channels at Portrait Coffee as well. I would say they got until January 12th. Let's do our best to make sure that they not only raise their $30,000, but they need more than $30,000.
Come on.
As every new business person knows, you need always more money than you think you do. So they're doing a wonderful initiative. So please support Portrait Coffee. If you want to get in contact with me, you can always reach me on all social media channels at I Am King Williams. So at I Am King Williams on all social media channels. And if you follow the Neighborhood Watch, it is at Watch the Hood on all social media channels as well. Once again, shout out to Portrait Coffee. Let's make sure they get their $30,000. And this is King Williams telling you, tune in next week. Thank you once again for Portrait Coffee coming in today. Thank you for the fellas telling me about what their initiative is. And I want you guys to do one thing in particular, which is Portrait Coffee has until January 12th to raise their $30,000. They're not quite there yet, and they could use your help. So right now, in the link below, make sure you click on the link, their Kickstarter campaign, which is Portrait Coffee. If you can see that, it's Portrait Coffee at Kickstarter.com. Make sure you support them. Every little dollar counts, whether it be $1 or $1 million. They need every single dollar that they can right now to get them going. They're 3 young black men with their wives, in particular 3 young millennial men who are trying to do a difference in a community that needs it the most. Support where you are needed and support where you are loved and wanted. And I want you guys to extend that same love to Portrait Coffee. So make sure you, and the link below, click on kickstarter.com/Portrait Coffee. Once again, this is King Williams of the Neighborhood Watch podcast. Please support Portrait Coffee.